Welcome back to Midlife by Human Design. I am so excited to have with me today Kellee Adams, who I met on Threads. She is a fellow Loon, aka Heated Rivalry fan. And we just started chatting a bit about some of the things that I've been talking about on the pod and sharing with you about Heated Rivalry and about how much this show has impacted midlife women as one group of people that it has impacted. So I wanted to have her on to the pod to have a conversation about midlife, about what does a show like Heated Rivalry and the fandom and all of the things that come along with it, what does it do to you when it first comes into your life like a beautiful gosh, I'm thinking of bomb, but it doesn't feel like a bad thing, It's like a love bomb, maybe.
Yes,
So, welcome, Kellee,
thank
and can
you.
you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Like you said, my name's Kellee Adams. I'm in my early 50s. I'm, suburban soccer mom, drive a minivan, normal middle of the road person. My kids have my youngest two are in college, so we're empty nesters. Everybody's out of the house and,
Mm.
we're trying to navigate that and sort of figure out what's next.
Yeah, yeah, which is the sweet spot and what I talk mainly about on this podcast is what do we do with this second half of our lives? And so at age, what are you, 51?
hmm
51? Yeah. How do I make this second half of life even more beautiful than the first half? So in regards to Heated Rivalry, when was the first time you watched it? When was the last time that you fangirled like this, if ever? And I'm curious how you feel like your journey has changed since you first watched it.
Sure. So I probably first watched right around the time episode 3 came out. It kept coming up in my like things you might be interested in. And
Mm,
I just looking at the picture, I was like, this is cheesy. This is probably not something I'm interested in. But I knit and I was looking for something to watch while I was knitting one day, making
love
Christmas
it.
presents. And I looked it up online and I saw that Jacob Tierney was the director and I love him. So
Mm.
I thought, okay, well, this will be funny, like 'cause these other shows are funny. And so I started watching, and probably 10 minutes in, I was just hooked.
Hmm.
And I watched those first 3 episodes, and then, we had to wait a week to
Yeah.
for the next episodes to drop, and I just felt so, I don't know, emotional, compelled, ignited somehow. And I wanted to find people to talk to about this. And so I don't even know how I ended up on Threads. I have a Threads account. I used it for politics and gardening. And I started seeing people post about this. So I started talking to everyone. And it was a lot of fun to talk to everybody while we waited for the next episode to drop. And then when I got through all 6 episodes, I kind of had that like hangover. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? Like it was so emotional. And so
Mm.
I realized I was going to start fangirling. And I talked to my husband and I was like, you have to watch this because this is what's going to happen. This is important to me. And I need you to understand what I am fangirling about. So he watched with me.
Love it.
He thought the show was great. And, now he's obviously not having the same reaction I am,
Hmm.
but he listens to me talk about it all the time. The last time I fangirled like this was probably in 2010. There was a band that I loved that was just starting to become really popular. We went and saw a bunch of their shows. They were not popular enough that you couldn't go talk to them at the shows. So we went to a
Mm.
couple different shows where we spent time talking to them. It was Mumford and Sons. So
Oh my
when
God.
Connor Story was on SNL with Mumford and Sons, that was
That's
like,
crazy.
it was a full circle moment for
Full
me.
circle moment.
Um,
Yeah.
but I love them. I spent like, a couple years just listening to their music constantly and writing about it and talking about it. And, we went and saw them a whole bunch of times. And
Amazing.
it was a very similar reaction. Like I had this very strong emotional, this is beautiful, this is so heartfelt, this is, they're funny, but their lyrics are poignant. Some of it's a little painful. It was a very, very similar reaction to this.
Yeah, I love them too. Although I'm not sure that I was listening to them as early as you were, but that's amazing.
It was just lucky. Like,
Yeah,
like the way that it's changed for me, I guess, is, when I first started watching, the first reaction was just, this is so joyful. This is such a beautiful story.
mm,
And I was so anxious because queer characters don't usually have a happy ending
hmm,
in romance or anything. And then I talked to someone who said, nope, this is a romance genre. You always get a happily ever after. I hadn't read the books yet. And I went,
okay.
okay. And then I could just relax and really just give in and be all in and enjoy the show.
Hmm.
And, I mean, it for so many reasons. The characters are all beautiful. These are incredibly beautiful people.
Hmm.
It's certainly nice to watch them. It's fun to watch these young people kind of fumble around and figure out love.
Yeah.
And there are two stories where that they have to hide, like because they're rivals and also because they're not out. That part is not my favorite. Like the rival story would have been fine. That's kind of Romeo and Juliet.
Hmm.
But I hate that anybody ever has to hide who they are. So that
Yeah.
became painful for me in a way, like thinking about friends' experiences growing up. I was in college in the 90s and all of the awakening that seemed to happen in society and friends
Yeah.
not having the greatest experiences coming out to their friends and family. And, that has
Mm,
always really hurt me. It's not my lived experience, but I love people that had that experience.
hmm.
So I started thinking about that a lot. And then I started thinking, oh, but maybe this is going to be a healing experience for some people because of the way Shane comes out to his mother. That was beautiful. I loved the way that happened. And, so for a long time, it was just, this is so joyful. This is so beautiful. This is such a great story. I'm really, really loving it.
Yeah.
Then it kind of turned and I started feeling nostalgic and like, oh, I'm never going to be that age again. And
Hmm.
what if things passed me by? And it sort of transcended the show in a way because it was no longer necessarily about the show. It was more that like I want this level of passion in my life and I want this intensity in my life. I'm a really emotional person. I feel things really intensely.
Hmm.
Our kids are out of the house, like, and my husband and I have a great relationship, but he had kids when I met him, so we'd never had a time without children.
Mm.
And I said, I want this to be like we're teenagers again and we get to date again and, we get to have fun again. And so we're working on that and it's been fun and I love it. But
Amazing.
it also like sometimes seeing the interviews with the actors and they're so articulate and
Right?
grounded and centered and they're 25. And I always say I could not put my pants on by myself at that age. Like, like,
Yeah.
like I was none of those things. And
Hmm.
that made me sad.
Mm.
And I started thinking, well, why do I feel this way? And why are they able to be like that and I couldn't? And I was like, is it because they're men? Is it because they were very likely raised by women my age who had
Hmm.
a similar experience and wanted to do things differently or wanted to give their kids a support structure they didn't have. It's all speculation, but what is that? And then how do I reconcile that? How do I make peace with that? Because I don't want to walk around just hurting and longing and feeling all of those things. Longing is
Hmm.
great in a way, but not for long periods of time.
Hmm.
So how do I make peace with that? And then what is this going to spark? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? What are my hobbies? I have hobbies, but what else could I be doing? I'm not ready to just sit in a rocking chair and watch TV for the next 30 years. Like 30 years
Yeah.
is a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
I want to do with it and trying to
Yeah.
figure that out. And not I still don't really know, but I've just
Hmm.
started kind of doing everything.
I love
I
it.
signed up for a ceramics class because I've always wanted to learn to throw pottery.
Nice.
thrown myself into my gym routine. Everybody has a gym routine and a skincare routine now after this. You know?
There's so many good things that have come out of this show.
Right.
That's
Like
two of them.
it's been really inspirational in a good way. I still have days where I'm like, I have to step back because the nostalgia really
Mm.
kind of settles in and kind of, it hurts. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out like, well, why does it hurt? What did I feel like I missed something?
Mm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
my life we talked a little about this. My life is not what I thought it was going to be when I was 20,
Right.
but it's good. Like I have children. I love being a mother. I
Yeah.
have a great career. I have a fantastic husband. I've spent 20 years grinding away at my job and at life and being a parent and being involved in my kids' lives. And all of those things are wonderful.
Yeah.
But now it's sort of like I came up for air and went, what next?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I think that your experience, from what I'm reading on Threads, reflects so many other experiences, right? It's very similar. And not everybody, I think, is as fortunate as you have been in terms of like having some stability and, feeling like things in general are really good. And my reminder to midlife women constantly is that this isn't the end. I think that our society essentially says that. It's like, well, you're done your job as a mother, you're nearing retirement. So, like, really, what worth do you have? And I'm like, excuse me. Actually, midlife women are the most kick-ass humans on the planet, I think. And if there's anything that's going to change the trajectory of our world and how we're moving forward, I think it's midlife women. And I think it's moving into a much more feminine-led society. So there were a few things that you said that are such reflections of your human design. And I would love to share your chart and chat about those for a bit for the people who are listening, who are familiar with human design. So Kellee is a 1-3 sacral generator, and she has gate 61 in her sun. And so to speak just briefly about your type. So your energy type as a generator is to respond. You respond to life bringing you things in general. So I love that you are signing up for pottery, that you've always wanted to do that. And now finally you're getting to do that. You're getting to take action. And your sacral center, which is this center right here, is the center that gives you that response. It gives you that gut feeling like, oh, I know I'm feeling something in my gut. This is for me. And it can feel like an uplifting feeling, or it can pull you in, literally like when you're watching Heated Rivalry as an example, you like move closer, like what? Versus if it's not for you, you kind of back away or get this feeling of like, ugh, in your body. So when you're thinking about moving forward in this second half of life, using that sacral response, which is going to happen in the moment, to guide you is ultimately, at least from a human design perspective, the way forward for you. So it's really just about getting yourself into many different situations so that you have the opportunity to respond. And you mentioned how you are very sensitive and you feel everything. And that is very much reflected in your chart. And you have a lot of, all of these are called centers, the different shapes in the chart. All of these different centers that are white or not colored in, those are either undefined if they have one gate in them or more, either undefined or open, which you have a completely open identity center and heart center. So anytime you have openness in your chart, you're taking in and amplifying what other people are giving, essentially, where you have these undefined centers. And this center here is your emotional solar plexus, which is undefined. And so you are taking in and amplifying everybody else's emotions. So yes, people who have an undefined solar plexus are often the most emotional of us all versus people who have defined solar plexuses will, they go through waves. They'll have ups and downs. And some of those can be pretty drastic. Some are a little less so. But when this is undefined, you can take on a lot of energy from other sources. So even watching Heated Rivalry, so my solar plexus is defined and I am a sucker for a happy ending. And the older I get, the more guarded I am with what I allow into my purview because it affects me so deeply. So in my chart, I have just these 4 centers. So you have one less center than I have defined. But that means that we both share all of these centers that are undefined up here. And that just means you're like taking on all of this energy all of the time. And what I realized was it lingers for me because I feel it so, so deeply. I realized like, okay, I don't need to watch this stuff, like it seems like such a basic understanding, but I get to choose what I take in, what I want to put into my brain and my eyeballs and my being. So when I'm watching Heated Rivalry, even on reheats now, sometimes I just skip past the tuna meltdown, because
Yeah.
I can't handle it. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, I know he has to do this. I know they have to go through this, but it's so painful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just like skip right over that. One other thing I wanted to point out was your completely open identity center, G center, which one way, like everything in the chart is on a spectrum, it has like a high expression and a low expression. And the high expression or the gift of the completely opened G center, identity center, is that you essentially are a chameleon. You can be whoever you need to be given the situation. So if you have to be like a high-powered executive at work and then come home and get in the dirt and put your sweatpants on and wear your ripped t-shirt to go out and get your hands in the dirt, like you could totally do that. And you can talk to the locals in the way that they talk, but then you can switch and have the right dialect and cadence and speech that you need for the high-powered executive space. Like you can embody whoever you need to be for whatever the situation is. So that is a really beautiful gift of the Open G Center. And it's also like, it's my belief that probably the vast majority of people who are really fangirling hard for this show have this same thing in their chart. Because essentially, as I said earlier, you take on and amplify all of this different type of energy from other people. So with Heated Rivalry and the fandom, it's like being a fan of this show and being like part of the ecosystem feels so good. And so we want to identify with that. It becomes part of our identity. So we fall into it and it's very easy to stay in it because it feels good, because we identify with it, versus people who have this defined are more consistent. They would take their executive self and still translate a lot of that executive self to being in the garden and talking with locals and et cetera, et cetera. Just a few things that I wanted to share about your chart when we were talking, because so much of what you were saying was really echoed in your chart. And I love to just be able to point those things out. So I'll give you a chance to respond.
Mhm. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me because how you described my ability to switch between groups of people is exactly how I describe myself. Like I try to
Yeah.
be the same person with everybody, who I am at my core,
Hmm.
but I do know that there may be language I need to use with one person or another person, and I can, go sit out in the garden in the dirt or, get dressed up and go do something else. Or
Yeah.
I'm different at work sometimes than I am at home. And sometimes that makes me feel like I'm compartmentalizing myself,
Mm-hmm.
where I'd kind of love to just be the same person all the time,
Hmm.
but it doesn't work. I need to be different people at different times,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Part of that is the conditioning of society, right? Is like the different roles that we can get forced into based on expectations of other people. And that's part of what we're here to do as humans is condition one another because essentially what happens is it then allows you to reflect and say, okay, does this reflect my values? Even if I have to be this different type of person in this situation, can I still carry my values into that situation? And another thing about your chart with your sun in gate 61, you've mentioned a few times this idea of, but why? Like, why am I doing that? Why? And this is, oh my gosh, if you're listening, Kellee is the perfect example of a gate 61 sun because that gate 61 is all about the mysteries of life. It's all about wanting to know. I think of it as the kind of the proverbial toddler, like, but why? Why, mom? Why? Why does it work that way? Why? And this constant drive to understand the mysteries of life. And I just love listening to you talk about that because it's great. And also, I think it's important to understand that part of having 61 in your sun gate is understanding that sometimes the answer is just being in the question. Yeah.
The journey rather than the destination.
Yeah.
And I'm a
Yeah.
big journey person. Like if you tell me the end of a book or the end of a movie, doesn't bother me at all, doesn't take away from my experience because I enjoy the experience of going through it.
Mm, yeah.
Spoilers don't bother me a bit. Sometimes they help because if I'm feeling anxious about how something's going to end, you know,
Yeah.
like I am the person that periodically reads the last page of a book
Ah,
because I,
okay.
I need to calm down.
Yeah.
Like I need to
Yeah. Oh
know
my
it's
gosh.
going to be
Yeah.
okay or,
And there have been lots of conversations I've seen on threads about heated rivalry and the romance genre in general as being very healing because it basically checks our worry, right?
hmm
In every turn of the show, even there were so many places where I expected something awful to happen and then it didn't. It was like the exact opposite,
hmm
and it's not that the characters didn't have any problems, right? They still work through the issues that they have, but it's not disastrous, which is really lovely.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Like there's still conflict, there's still tension, but it ends in a positive place.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, one of the things you touched on a bit about feeling like a lot left of life and we haven't really done everything that we want to do. So, I'm curious about any big dreams that maybe you had put on hold or maybe they were seated in your 20s and now you have the opportunity. Are there any things that are coming back around to your awareness that you're feeling drawn to?
Absolutely. The one thing that still remains is that I want to travel. I
Mm,
I want to see everything.
love it.
And what I really want is I want to be able to go live different places for months at a time to really experience an area and a culture. That's probably not going to happen. But I want to travel. We haven't been able to do a lot of it when we were raising our kids. We
Yeah.
did a lot of camping. We've been a lot of places, but that's the one thing that I still am like, that's my big goal in life. And
Yeah.
we went to Ireland and Italy last year.
Great.
Amazing. My son was studying in Italy, so we took the whole family and we all went to go see him. And I've mapped out this list of my husband and I've been keeping a list of all the places we want to go and what do we want to do. And it's harder for him to take time off than it is for me. So I've started
Mm.
having a conversation with him like, can I travel without you? How do you
Mm.
feel about that? If I get some girlfriends and we go somewhere, because I don't want to miss out on this. This is the one life that I get that I know of. And while my joints still function, things I want to do. I want to see everything. I want to know everything. I guess it goes back to the wanting to know how things work, and
Yeah.
having all the questions.
Absolutely. I think what a beautiful way to feed that gate 61. And also, you touched on this piece about your husband and that expectation that I think we fall into if we've been married for years and years and we've raised families. There's this expectation that you continue doing everything the same way that you've been doing for decades. And I think that it's crucial to people's well-being and health to be able to become the next version of yourself in the second half of life when you have done all of those things already. And that isn't necessarily always going to be intertwined with your significant other. And this demands a certain level of stability and understanding and new conversations too that you have to have with your partner about what is going to work for both of you, both financially as well as just like you were saying, helping you to bloom into this next version of
Mhm.
yourself, right?
And I'm fortunate. My husband and I have been together for 25 years. We've been married for 22 years. We have certainly
Nice.
had our ups and downs. Like it has not all been wine and
Yeah.
roses. And in fact, I said to him a couple months ago, like, thank you for staying with me long enough to get
Mm.
here.
Yeah.
Because like even now we're still discovering things about each other and having new conversations, and there are things that they're still coming up where I'm going, well, how have I been with you this long and I did not know this about you?
Mm.
And we have our own separate hobbies and interests, and so that also helps things to be interesting because we have things to talk about. But
Yeah.
it took work to get here. So I like
Yeah.
I don't want anybody listening to think, oh, she's got this great whatever, and because not everybody's partnered and not everybody has found that.
Exactly. And when you've been together for decades, it's inevitable that you haven't been through some shit. Life is hard.
Mhm.
Life is challenging sometimes, or it brings you challenges. And so having to navigate those necessitates you working through some conflicts together. So I don't think you can look at anybody who has made it to this phase of life, even if they have a super healthy relationship, and just make this blatant assumption that, oh, everything's great with you. Aren't you so lucky? No. And I think that's part of the beauty of being a midlife woman, because if we can accept that and understand that about one another, then it builds this ground level respect. Like you have made it this far in life. You're such a badass. And yeah, I love hearing people's stories. So thank you again for sharing yours. Um, okay, I had one of your threads written down here in reaction to an interview with Connor Story that,
Um,
yeah, yeah. That led you into this line of thinking. You said, I internalized a lot of what I liked, what I felt, what I wanted to create. I do a lot of things on my own because I never found my tribe. I recognize that I am unique, and even with all of the people pleasing and shrinking, I never compromised myself in certain ways in order to fit in. Instead, I compartmentalized my life. So we mentioned that a little bit earlier when we were talking about the G center. And I'm curious from your point of view, what do you see as the difference between compromise and compartmentalizing?
Sure. By not compromising, I mean mostly that I will not do just anything to fit in. Like I'm
Mm,
of a certain generation where we were all told we were too much and too loud and don't
right.
stand out and don't rock the boat, and then we all wonder why no we don't have the confidence we feel like we should have at this age.
Right.
Um, but I won't just go along with what anybody's doing just to fit into a group. And like you said, when you're responding to something, it's either this is for me or this is not for me. And if it's not for me, I'm out, you know. But I still do a fair amount of people pleasing and trying to fit in certain ways, but
Hmm.
but I do have a boundary. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of where I say like that's where the compromise ends. There is a boundary there, and at a certain point I'm like, nope, this is not for me. I can't do this. And
Mm.
then, you will never hear from me again.
Love it.
You
I
know.
love that. I hear your sacral talking there in terms of the immediate knowledge, when you're able to respond to something right in the moment. Like you were saying, if something happens and it just feels like, nope, that's not for me. I imagine it that you feel it in your gut. You get this gut feeling of like, yeah, peace out, people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Which
I
is
mean, I've always trusted my gut, and I'm rarely wrong.
awesome.
You know.
Yes. So good,
Now, I
so
may I
good.
may change my mind. I may get new information. People grow and change and evolve, and I'm always open to that.
Yes.
But for the most part, and I'm a very loving, compassionate, open person. I accept people. I want everybody to do their own thing and let their freak flag fly, and I'm totally on
Hmm.
board with that. But there is a point where if you give me the ick, like
See ya.
you know,
Yeah.
and for the compartmentalizing, it's more just like and it goes back to what we were talking about before with being different people in different situations. And
Hmm.
now that we're talking, I'm starting to go, well, maybe this isn't a bad thing. Maybe I've just looked at it as a bad thing. But like
Mm.
I like so many things that nobody I know likes.
Yeah.
Movies, music, and all kinds of stuff. Or, I have friends that would absolutely not be fans of Heated Rivalry. And so I don't
Hmm.
talk about it with them.
Yeah.
But I want to be the same person with everybody, and I want to be able to like what I like openly with everybody. But
Mm.
I recognize some people are not ready. I can be a lot sometimes. And so some people are just not ready for that. And,
Yeah.
or I end up doing a lot of stuff by myself because I don't know
Hmm.
anybody else that likes something. And I'm okay with doing things by myself. But again, like I never found my tribe really. And
Hmm.
and and I live in an area of the country where if your family didn't come over on the Mayflower and move here, like if people don't know your parents and your grandparents, and like you're probably not, like people are nice, but I never found like the bosom buddy,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I've lots of friends and they're all very nice, wonderful people. I just haven't found like the person I connect with spiritually,
Yeah.
and maybe everybody doesn't get that. Maybe that's something that exists mostly in TV or movies or it's lightning in a bottle and it's unique. And I'm okay with myself and I don't mind spending time by myself. But
Hmm.
I do, every once in a while I'm like, I would love to go to this movie with someone, but I don't know anybody that would like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hard relate. Hard relate. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you feel like you have found some people online through this fandom?
Absolutely. Like I was really thinking about this yesterday. One of the things that I've always tried to do is create community.
Mm,
When I was younger and you're kind of in school and you're in proximity to a lot of people all the time, it was a lot easier. Now it's a little harder, but I want that sense of community. And so I realize that's what I'm doing on Threads.
yeah.
I'm meeting especially women my age that are relating to the things that I'm talking about. And also a lot of younger women, which I love because I need people in my life of all ages and all
Yeah.
experience levels. And we all have things that we can teach each other and learn from each other.
100%.
And it's fun. Like we're having big, deep conversations about feelings, but we're also just having a ridiculous amount of fun.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I love that because I usually am kind of more on the serious side and more on the earnest, sincere, thoughtful side. Like
Hmm.
my husband and my children are really the only people that really get to see me being completely ridiculous and silly.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
That's great that they get to see that,
oh
you
yeah,
know?
we have a lot of fun together. But this is fun. Like this is joyful. And there are times when I'm like, maybe I should step back from all of this because I spend a lot of time there.
Hmm.
I'm like, but why? Like it makes me happy. Why am I trying to deny myself something that makes me happy?
Such a good question. And it's so interesting how quickly we jump to self-judgment and judgment of others, well, oh my God, this show has been out for months. Like, what's the big deal? Why are you still? And I think you just named it. It's makes you happy. It brings you joy. And tying it back into human design, because that's what I do, is that is what a generator is all about. Like a generator must be fueled by things that light them up. That is the essence of a generator. And 70% of the population are either generators or manifesting generators, which is another human design type. So if we were actually all following our purpose of being lit up all the time, then our world would be a different place. Absolutely. So if you're listening to this, first of all, if you haven't seen Heated Rivalry, what the hell are you doing with your life? Second of all, this is a safe space for any of you who just can't get enough. And I saw something yesterday about the different phases, that we
Yes.
go through. Yes, right. Of like watching it and then sharing edits with people and reading all the books and diving in. And I am a former English teacher, and one of the things I have been really enjoying about the fandom is the breakdowns and looking at tiny little pieces
Yes.
of
All
either,
the symbolism, all the
right,
fallbacks.
exactly.
I think all of our English teachers would be so proud.
So, right? Exactly. And it just goes to show that when you are watching or taking in something that you really enjoy, you can make all kinds of connections. So, one of the questions I had, and this is related to something that you said earlier as well, is about not necessarily hopping onto mainstream bandwagons. And you like a lot of different things and a lot of maybe things that your friends might think are weird or whatever. And so I'm curious, what would you say to somebody who hasn't watched Heated Rivalry yet?
Oh, I've been having this conversation for months. Like
Okay.
I've gotten some people to watch it and they seem to be able they just like, yeah, this is okay, or they sort of like it a normal amount. And
Hmm.
other friends are like, I don't have time for that. But with most people, I tell them like it is such a joyful story. It has a happy ending. It is a beautiful love story. It's longing. There's romance. There's all this build up. Everybody's beautiful.
Right?
Like it's just, and I also keep comparing it to Jane Austen. Like, I'm
Mm,
like, you cannot tell me this is not a Regency piece because there
yeah.
are so many situations where if you just had one conversation, everything would be cleared up, and nobody has that conversation. Jane Austen was funny, and there was a lot of social commentary about women's lives at the time. And so much of the conversation around the show has been how women are reacting to it, or,
Right.
specifically straight women, how they're reacting to it.
Yeah.
You see, like, oh, men can communicate, you know?
Right.
And I
Hmm.
realized this is fiction. This was written by someone who could make all of her characters do all the things they needed to do, and then the show
Yeah.
was written by someone who could carry that further. We don't see them doing laundry and the dishes and all the mundane everyday stuff. Like we are literally hitting the high points, but
Yeah. Hopefully, season two, we might see some of that.
I hope so. But
Yeah.
there's so much in season two, I just can't wait to see.
Uh,
But I usually tell people like it is just such a joyful, beautiful love story. And it's fun, and especially right now, it's something you can escape into because the world's a bit scary and ugly, and
yeah.
the best escape right now. And
Hmm.
I need to escape periodically.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what you were talking about in terms of the community and your ability to build community within this fandom has been really beautiful to watch as well. And when people think about building a community, it's like, well, where do I get started? And first of all, Threads is a great platform aside from the fact that it's owned by Zuckerberg.
Yes.
However, it seems to be the place where the fandom lives and thrives and really loves to share the written word, especially. And that essentially is how the community is being built, is just by people being willing to share their thoughts. And that's what I've watched you do, is just like sharing your thoughts about the
Hmm.
show, sharing things that occur to you. It's like a beautiful generator response. Like you get this thought from the show or an edit. Have you read any of the fanfics, or where are you with
Oh
that
yeah.
journey?
I
Okay.
I hadn't read any fan fiction probably since college.
Okay.
Like, when the internet was first a thing in the 90s and people
Yeah.
started writing about like the X-Files and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I hadn't read fan fiction in years, and everybody was talking about this one work.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to
Wolfbird, are
say
you
what
talking about?
Wolfbird.
Yeah.
Everybody was
Okay.
talking about Wolfbird
Yeah.
so much that I was like, well, I should read it,
Uh-huh.
and I read it, and I like the first chapter, I was just blown away. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so good. Her writing is so incredible.
It
And
is.
and so since then, I started a spreadsheet. I've been collecting links when people
Oh
are
my
like, "Oh,
God.
this,
I
I'm
love
never
it.
gonna read all of this stuff. I'm gonna try." But yeah,
I love
and
it.
that's fun too. Like, I love the exploration of the characters. Like, I love this space. I love this universe. I love these people, and I love that people are playing with it
Yeah.
and looking at it from different angles, or stuff like the tuna melt scene that is so upsetting, that
Mm-hmm.
people have written fan fiction about what if it didn't go that way, what if it had a better
Mm.
ending, or the scene in Vegas where they didn't kiss,
Yeah.
what if Shane sent the text, and what
Mm.
happens. Like, I love all of that.
Yeah.
That part is fun too. It's fun to explore.
Yeah.
It goes back to me wanting to know the why of everything.
Absolutely. And it brings this richness to the experience too, which I feel like people are missing right now. With the way our world has changed, with the advent of social media and how quick everything is, it's like everything's moving so quickly. And if you're on a social media app, you can watch a heated rivalry edit in one swipe, and then the next swipe is about World War fucking three, It's like
Hmm.
there's no like filter. There's not a way to compartmentalize those things. And so part of what I have done and why I love my feed right now is because I keep clicking on the heated rivalry things. And
Hmm.
so it keeps feeding me heated rivalry. And so I get to live in that universe. And it only becomes more rich because everybody is contributing. It doesn't feel like this suction from me. I don't get this sense of feeling drained after I leave. I feel filled up in terms of the real live humans that are there and contributing to the beauty of this universe. It's just like chef's kiss. And I'm gonna have to get the names of the fanfics from you that turn the like sad scenes into happy ones, because I don't think I've read those. And I did start Wolfbird. I loved her writing, but I've also read that it's absolutely devastating, and I've been really fearful of going there. Does it have a happy ending? Is it finished? I
She's
don't
not
even know.
done. Like,
She's not done. Okay.
no, she's not done. And so, like, it could be, some people have said they're not reading it yet. They want to wait until it's done.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, it is devastating, but sometimes we get a little hyperbolic, I think, on the internet,
Yeah.
myself
Really?
included.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always like, oh, I'm dying. I'm not actually dying.
Right.
But there are some painful parts. There are some things
Hmm.
that really hurt. I mean, Ilya as a character is someone that carries around a lot of pain,
Right.
and Shane carries around this rigidity that doesn't let him fully experience life. And
Right.
those elements are definitely in this story. Plus, it's alternate universe, so
Okay.
like Ilya is not currently a hockey player in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I love these characters and I love seeing them, and she's done such a good job of keeping their personalities the way that they are. Like,
Mm.
I'm just really impressed with this author. If she is not already a published author, I hope somebody is working on that for her.
Picking, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Me too. All right. Well, Kelly, I've taken up a bit of your time today and I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that for our listeners that they've gotten a glimpse into the Heated Rivalry universe if you haven't dipped your toe yet. And then if you have, then I don't know about you, but not only do I watch edits and reread the books and rewatch the show, I'm also listening to any podcast I can
yep.
find that is talking about Heated Rivalry. So yeah, we see you. We see you. We love you. We're so happy to be you. um, yeah. So thank you again, Kelly. Is there anything else that I've forgotten that you would like to add or share?
The one thing I would just like to encourage people is that if this is bringing you joy, don't feel like you have to minimize that. I think
Yeah.
that is a common experience for women. I can't speak for men, but I think that is a common experience for women. That the things that we love kind of get minimized,
So true.
or we get relegated to like this, I keep calling it this pastel colored corner of the world that's full of stuffed animals, and
Mm,
like especially mothers, like you suddenly become very sweet and innocent
mm-hmm.
and like I'm a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
So if you love this or anything, love it and don't be afraid to do that.
Mm. So wise. I love that. Thank you so much. All right. We will end on that note. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.